was right in the middle of the driving range. When geoscientists came out, they...
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Minnesota.
This is the Wendigo. The Wendigo is often described as a giant humanoid that's very skinny and decaying, with its eyes pushed back in its sockets, and whenever it's getting close, you start to feel a cold chill. The legend originated from the eastern forests of Canada and the Great Plains regions of the United States. It's said to be an evil spirit that possesses humans when they're either overcome by greed or whenever they resort to cannibalism to survive. And when they're possessed, they have an insatiable hunger for human flesh. One of the most famous cases of Wendigo possession or Wendigo psychosis involved a Plains Cree trapper in Alberta in the winter of 1878. Basically, the story goes, when he resorted to cannibalism to avoid starvation, he went crazy and killed everyone in his family, which was 9 people, after tasting human flesh. The existence and history of Wendigo psychosis has been hotly debated since then, but there is still a large number of people that believe Wendigo still roam the north. Top comment chooses the next state.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Illinois.
This is the Illinois Enfield Monster. Also known as the Enfield Horror, eyewitnesses describe the monster as a grayish-colored humanoid with 3 legs, a short body, pink eyes, and 2 little arms. It was first sighted in 1973 when a man heard a scratching at his front door and saw something that he thought was a bear at first, but then he realized it was a 3-legged monster that he believed was not of this planet. He said when he shot at it, it made a hissing sound like a wildcat and covered 50 feet in only 3 jumps. Researchers at Western Illinois University analyzed the incident and 2 other first-hand encounters. They deemed the reports to possibly be a kangaroo, but there's many others that believe it was an outer space monster and that it's still out there. Top comment chooses the next state.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Most famous mythical creature in each state. Montana.
This is the Shunka-Werican. Quick disclaimer, this monster is real. According to American folklore, the Shunka-Werican looks like a wolf-hyena hybrid. In 1896, a man in Sun Ranch, Montana killed and mounted what was believed to be the Shunka-Werican that was pestering local natives for generations. There's a picture of it. But later in 2006, an unusual looking wolf killed 120 sheep, and many believe it was another Shunka-Werican. Top comment chooses next state. You heard.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Kentucky.
These are the Kelly Little Green Men. Also known as the Hopkinsville encounter, 12 people said they were in a shootout with space goblins for 4 hours. It allegedly occurred in 1955 near Hopkinsville, Kentucky, when 5 adults and 7 children claimed their farmhouse was under attack after small silver alien creatures that glowed green came out of a spaceship. Later, the United States Air Force classified the incident as a hoax, but many believe it wasn't because of the amount of witnesses. What's the next state?
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Alaska.
This is the Alaskan Tisaruk. Also known as the Loch Ness Monster of Alaska, the Tisaruk is a mythical creature from Inuit religion. Described as being a 15 to 30 foot long sea serpent with a flipper like a fish. Said to inhabit the waters near King Island in this area. And local Inuit people claim that it snatched people off piers without them even noticing. In 2009, a local fisherman got a video of what many believe is a Tisaruk, but this is basically what the footage looks like. What state should I leave next?
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Utah.
This is the Bear Lake Monster. It's described as resembling a 50-foot long serpent, but with short legs, a head like a crocodile, and it kind of looks like a mosasaurus. Native American folklore described a similar creature inhabiting Bear Lake, and according to a newspaper in 1868, settlers around Bear Lake began reporting sightings, and the story got so popular that many set out to actually capture the monster. Later, the newspaper article writer admitted his stories were a lie, but since then there has been many alleged sightings. What do you want to hear next?
Every time I feel good, I think it'll last forever, but it doesn't. Every time.
Most famous. Most famous mythical creature in each state. Oklahoma.
This is the Oklahoma octopus. After a large number of unexplained drownings in Oklahoma lakes, some residents have turned to an unusual explanation that comes from a 200-year-old Native American legend about a strange aquatic creature with a desire for human flesh. It's described as being a red octopus that's the size of a horse and has shark teeth, and it's said to inhabit Lake Thunderbird, Uloga Lake, and Lake Tenkiller. There's no existing evidence whatsoever of it, but if this is your state, let me know if you've seen it, and top comment chooses the next state.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Missouri.
This is Momo the Monster, also known as the Missouri Monster. Eyewitnesses describe it as an ape-like creature that's about 7 feet tall and it has long dark hair that is extremely smelly. The most famous sighting of Momo occurred in 1972 when 2 young boys were playing in their backyard and their sister heard them screaming. When she looked out the window to where they were playing, she saw a massive dark-haired man-like creature holding a dead dog. And she said it had a pumpkin-shaped head and glowing dark eyes. Has anyone from Missouri seen him? Let me know in the comments, and top comment chooses the next state.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Louisiana.
This is the Rougarou, also known as the Cajun critter. It's a shapeshifter with the human body and the head of a wolf. The idea of the Rougarou came from medieval France, where they'd have a witch hunt, and they'd accuse people on trial of witchcraft or being a loup-garou, which meant werewolf in French. Later on, a lot of French migrated to Canada and then down to Louisiana, and since then, the legend now roams the swamps. Has anyone from Louisiana seen it? Let me know in the comments, and top comment chooses the next state.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Tennessee.
This is the Tennessee Wildman. The origins of the Wildman goes back to the 1800s when a circus conductor allegedly captured something similar to a Sasquatch but more human-like for a freak show until it broke free. Described as being 7 feet tall, covered in dark grayish red hair and having piercing red eyes, also extremely smelly. It's known for being very aggressive and having a horrifying inhuman scream. And it was last sighted 20 years ago, but could it beat Bigfoot in a fight? Let me know in the comments.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Tennessee.
This is the Tennessee Wildman.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Indiana.
This is the Beast of Busco. Did you know thousands of people traveled to Churubusco, Indiana in the late 1940s to witness the attempted capture of a Volkswagen-sized lake monster? Yeah, in 1898, a farmer allegedly saw a giant snapping turtle in a lake near his farm. A half-century later, 2 people reported seeing a huge turtle that was 500 pounds in the same lake, which led to mobs of people traveling there to watch it be captured. It was never captured, but to this day, the town of Churubusco still has a festival in the turtle's memory. Top comment chooses the
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Oregon.
This is Colossal Claude, also known as Marvin the Monster. It's described as having the head of a camel, coarse gray fur, and being 40 feet long. Famous sighting was in 1939 by halibut fishermen who claimed they saw Colossal Claude only 10 feet from their ship as he stole and ate halibut off their fishing line. Later in 1963, the Shell Oil Company got a video of something many believe was Colossal Claude swimming around, and the video granted it the nickname Marvin the Monster. Here's the footage. One explanation of these sightings could be jellyfish or a whale, but others believe it's a surviving plesiosaurus.
What's next? You decide.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. New Mexico.
This is the New Mexico Territorn, another dinosaur that refuses to stay extinct. In 2007, a man reported seeing 2 enormous bird-like creatures with wingspans of over 20 feet gliding along the Organ Mountains in New Mexico. And there have been similar reports throughout New Mexico since the 1800s. Many believe these are the extinct raptor-like Territorns that occupied these lands over 6,000 years ago. But scientists are very skeptical. Where's next? You decide.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Arkansas.
This is the Fawk Monster, also known as the Boggy Creek Monster and the Swamp Stalker. It's been the subject of 2 popular documentaries. The most famous sighting was in the 1970s when a local Arkansas family was allegedly being terrorized by a 7-foot ape-like creature similar to Bigfoot but with blackish red fur and 3 toes. 2 men from the family had enough and went to chase it away, and after pursuing it, they ended up thinking they shot it twice, but then realized there was another Fawk Monster back at the house trying to get to the women inside. After the incident, there were many reports of similar 3-toed ape men all around Arkansas and Texas areas, and many believe they still roam.
What state's next? You decide.
Most famous mythical creature in each state. Kansas.
This is Sinkhole Sam. Basically, some guys fishing in the 1950s allegedly saw a 15-foot long worm inside of a sinkhole inside Lake Inman in Kansas. Later in 1960, a sighting of a similar creature was reported 50 miles south of a snake so large a tractor couldn't run over it, which led to a large search for this giant snake. Unfortunately, they didn't find the monster, so it could still be out there.
What's next? You decide.
This is the Pennsylvania squonk. Squonk is an alleged creature that has misfitting skin that's completely covered in warts and moles. It's so ashamed of its appearance that it hides from plain sight and spends most of its time weeping. And according to witnesses, it can dissolve itself into tears to get away. Has anyone from Pennsylvania seen this?
What state would you like to hear next?
Have you guys heard of the Alabama white thing? Basically, there's several accounts of seeing these large white creatures in Alabama, but witnesses all describe it differently. Many report seeing a large 7-foot tall creature that's like Bigfoot covered in white hair. And others describe seeing a white lion or even a white humanoid alien creature that they see in caves. Apparently, it's a big thing in Alabama. Has anybody seen it?
Top comment chooses next state.
You guys heard of the Alabama?
Did you know? The U.S. government has an official publication titled
Have you heard of the strange events that occurred in Have you heard of Slimy Slim? That's what they used to call the mysterious lake monster that lived in Payette Lake in Idaho. Native Americans have long feared an evil spirit dwelling in the lake, and in 1920, Charlie, that's what they call the lake monster now, had its first documented sighting. It's described as kind of looking like this, 35 feet long, having a dinosaur-like head, humps like a camel, and shell-like skin. And here's the best alleged picture we have of it. What do you guys think about him, and
What state would you like next?
records of Atlantis exist? Have you heard of the Beast of Bray Road? Basically, there's this road in Wisconsin where people report seeing overly large wolf-like creatures that they have strange encounters with. And what's crazy is most of the witnesses describe it as being a 6 to 7 foot tall wolf-like humanoid. Most encounters end with witnesses getting scratches down the side of their car. Here's an alleged picture of it. Some believe the sightings are just mass hysteria, but others believe it's actually a werewolf. What do you think?
What state would you like to hear next?
Jackalope, where it came from. Ever heard of the lizard man of Skateboard Swamp? The first sighting was in the 80s in South Carolina. A guy was changing his tire when he said he saw a very strange creature walking towards his car. He described the creature as being 7 foot tall, having 3 fingers, red eyes, skin like a lizard, and snake scales. And it allegedly attacked his car. A month later, after a local radio station offered a $1 million reward, there was a police report filed that someone had shot and wounded it. But the last sighting was in 2011. Has anyone seen it? What state next? Ever heard of the lizard man of... Have you heard of... This is the Georgia River monster known as the Altamaha. It's said to have been seen by Native Americans along the Altamaha River for hundreds of years. Described as having a sturgeon-like body and the snout of a crocodile. And in 2018, decomposing remains were found that many speculated were an Altamaha, but later it was found as a stuffed shark in paper mache. Anyone from Georgia heard of it? Tell me. This is the Georgia River monster known as the Altamaha. Malaysian Flight 370 was a very... I feel like no one talks about the Beast of Bladenboro, which is basically this creature that's responsible for a string of deaths in Bladenboro, North Carolina. Such a weird picture. At first, residents thought it was a wildcat because it was mainly preying on dogs, but then they reported it allegedly draining the blood of a fully grown horse. What do you guys think happened? If you live in the United States, transhumanism. Have you heard of Nebraska's giant lake monster? While some claim the Alkali Lake monster to be a hoax invented to sell newspapers, others believed it was very real. The first eyewitnesses in 1920 described it as a combination of an alligator and a rhino, and said it was extremely smelly. Does this remind you of anyone? Tag the smelly person. Have you heard of Nebraska's giant lake monster? While some claim the Alkali Lake monster to be a hoax invented to sell newspapers, others believed it was very real. The first eyewitnesses in 1920 described it as a combination of an alligator and a rhino, and said it was extremely smelly. Does this remind you of anyone? Tag the smelly person. Have you heard of Nebraska's giant lake monster? While some claim the Alkali Lake monster to be a hoax invented to sell newspapers, others believed it was very real. The first eyewitnesses in 1920 described it as a combination of an alligator and a rhino, and said it was... I feel like no one... Have you heard of black-eyed kids? It's an alleged reoccurring phenomenon of small children appearing with blacked out eyes. There is quite a rabbit hole on the occurrences and theories about it, but basically it's just creepy kids that appear whenever tragedy happens. Has anyone seen it? Have you heard of black-eyed kids? I feel like people overlook the significance of psyops. Antarctica conspiracy theories. There are so many. A few of the most popular are that there are It could be an oarfish, or it could be an alien. Have you heard of Maryland's sea monster? Sightings of Chessie described a serpent-like creature with flippers that was about 40 foot long that moves through the water like a snake. Claims of the sighting started in 1930, and there's even amazing photo evidence of it. Tell me if you know anyone who's seen it. It could be an oarfish, or it could be an alien. Have you heard of Maryland's sea monster? Sightings of Chessie described a serpent-like creature with flippers that was about 40 foot long that moves through the water like a snake. Claims of the sighting started in 1930, and there's even amazing photo evidence of it. Did you know that the leader of the SS, Heinrich Himmler, was looking for mystical artifacts? The Vela incident. People who've been to Lake Tahoe. Have you heard of Tahoe Tessie? Tessie is Lake Tahoe's alleged lake monster that's legend has been told even before European settlers arrived. It's been described as looking like a serpent-like monster, gigantic eel, or even a plesiosaurus. Legend has it the monster has lived in a cave beneath the lake, as it's said to be up to 80 foot long. If you've seen it,
Let me know in the comments.
the United States government. The United States government found an